side lane threat. He was such a big extra part of the damage. So Zika picking this one up leaves BLG with a couple of answers, well, a couple of questions really. Do you have to take away the Sejani? Are you happy just locking in a skill matchup? What's happening towards your jungle, particularly with these two champions likely to get locked in? Skill matchup in the top lane.
I would expect this to kind of be the moniker of Bin, and it is. So Fiora locked in for BLG. Now we'll see what their second response is here. We've seen a little bit of adaptation in this final game where we're getting the solo lanes picked out pretty early, but I still would expect there to be some priority towards this bottom side before things get picked out a little bit too much more.
Jungle locked in. Just
wow, just going to be 3 Vi's in a row, huh?
Now you have to ask the question, you know, like we've seen kind of Sejani be passed up a number of times today, but I just feel like Sejani is really, really good with Jax, given that melee synergy. Of course,
it's got to be for LNG.
The Fiora that you can kind of riposte, a part of the CC. It is finally going to be locked in now. Maybe LNG try to give Zika a bit of a leg up on the competition. But then again, bot lane, as you've been saying, Mazel, it has been very conspicuously passed over in the first few picks. We're not going to have complete bot lanes locked in. It's going to be Zeri locked in away from a support. So second round bans could potentially be something like a Lulu to deny Zeri the Enchanter bias.
So I actually want to take a look at this because we are maybe even getting that adaptation in strategy, at least for LNG, where we've had both teams opting into very flippy bot lanes in both games so far, whereas this time LNG, with this Zeri pickup, at least in the first phase, going with something more stable, maybe even focusing towards these solo lanes a little bit more, having Tarzan play ping pong between both of his solo lanes here, as Syndra is that lock-in for the final part of the first phase of BLG, and they're saving their bot lane for last year as Ryze gets banned away as well.
Now, LNG, you have to make some questions. Yeah, now the problem is now, BLG could lock Lulu on 4, then lock something like Sivir in on 5. You take away the Lulu away from Zeri, so you don't need to ban it. You've got the first pick after the bans anyway. So do you have to ban away Sivir? You've already banned away that Caitlyn in terms of priority 80 carries left. What are you worried about from this bot lane? BLG, on the other side, they're very happy to just ban away stuff which the Syndra might not be able to pin in lane. Yagao with that Syndra, though, was banned away, I believe, in the first game of the series. Banning away the Akali as well, setting Yagao up for success.
I like this focus for BLG, just trying to get this mid lane as stable as possible. I think they realize how important Yagao is in this series, specifically against Scout, as well as he's been just on a tear for LNG.
I think you have to ban... They ban away the Xayah.
Nope, it's the Xayah.
I think you lock Lulu here. You can either lock Lulu or maybe you can go towards Karma, look towards like Ezreal Karma, Jhin Karma, something like that. This is different. There's a couple of options they have. You can take away the Lulu would be like a big takeaway for me though. That's what I feel would be quite valuable for them. You go towards something like the Sivir on the 5th pick, because that's obviously been left alive, but they're thinking through a couple of things. Maybe looking towards a bit more aggressive early game power. Or Zeri, very low range champion. Kaisa likes playing into low range champions because she can actually have a laning phase. So, Kaisa locked in for Elk, returning to the LPL. We've seen it here and there.
Interested how this is going to work out outside of the laning phase. I would be very curious of what they're going to kind of pair up here. Obviously, we're waiting on that support pick. So, interestingly enough, a counter pick of support here in the third game of this series.
It is, because support matchup does determine a lot of kind of bot lane matchups. You see the Azir locked into the Syndra. Syndra has some kill threat onto the Azir early, can kind of catch him out with some of the Scout of the Weeks.
By the way, Nymeara, I got an update from a fan who added us. So that was the turtle fan, by the way. Turtle sign, by the way. That was Scout owns turtles. He has a pet turtles, so that's why that person made a neon sign.
Yeah, forget Game 3 and all of this like nice
it's all
stuff.
about turtles.
Learning about Scout's turtles is the most important thing I've done today.
It is, actually. I kind of like it. That's important to me, okay? But we do get the Leona for Hung, a classic and something that he has been very, very akin to this time around. Now we get the response from BLG.
Yeah, and also Leona, very good into Syndra and Kaisa. Reason being, so when you pop your W, your Eclipse on the Leona, it reduces, it's kind of like old Adaptive Helm, if you remember that item. Kaisa's Q, you get hit by the first thing, the first little bullet of it. The ones which come afterwards have reduced damage. Every instance after the first of the same skill gets reduced. Same with Syndra's ultimate. So Leona actually able to tank up on that a lot more. Problem is, though, Kaisa can just keep auto-attacking you. The current build for Kaisa, which is locked in on that Rakan, I think Kaisa has a big threat in this game of reaching 2 items, going something like Kraken Slayer, Navori Quick Blades, into something either like a Nash's 2 third or a Blade of the Ruin King third, and absolutely shredding through, completely blasted by Syndra, Vi, Kaisa flying in over the top. So LNG, hope you've got an early game plan to make sure things get off on the right foot. Got to take off again as you did in game 1. If you go even into the mid game, you're really relying on Jackson Sejani to do your heavyweight carrying. Your carries are going to struggle into the engage combo of BLG.
As we hear the Gyos come through, the crowd amped up and ready to go. I saw a Yuumi sign in there, by the way. No fan here, no love here. Yumi's gone. Yumi's banned. But we are getting into a little bit of that early vision game here that I feel like has been very, very important, obviously, when it comes to the Shun-Tarzan matchup. But we are seeing BLG now on the red side try to be that proactive vision setter, as we saw in game number 1. They actually had good vision of Tarzan for a lot of the early part of game number 1.
Well, see if Tarzan can make an impact in this one. Melee synergy with Leona, melee synergy with Jax. 2 things which can impact these ganks very early on. And as we said, LNG, they really want to get themselves an early advantage if at all possible. We have another milestone.
Another milestone. I was about to say 300th game for Elk. So we had a 200th, we had a 500th, we had a 300th. How many numbers do you need?
There's some more milestones coming up as well. I'm trying. I think it was Hope that's almost hit 1,000 kills or something like that. I'll try and like be more exact on that one. Just, again, lots of players, again, as we said, really making their mark on this league over the last few years. Trying to make their way into the annals of history through Chinese League of Legends. This one will be going into the record books after this game, of course. BLG, if they were to take a win here, how big would that be for this team? LNG, 6-1, only lost the 1 series to NIP, but BLG could really knock LNG into an awkward spot. This was meant to be their easy series. This was meant to be their easiest one, the campfire before the Dark Souls boss raid. They've got, what? Weibo, EDG, Top, JDG after this series. It is not going to get any easier for them, and BLG, they could use this as their own launch pad into greater success afterwards.
Trying to find a little bit of that momentum as we have already crested that halfway point in the LPL. Now LNG looking for something a little early. This is what I've set up, at least from the beginning. We didn't necessarily get it as much, but Tarzan's very early pathing. He's able to, I actually think Shun was able to steal that one back away.
They know that Shun is somewhere, so whether he's heading towards top or towards mid. Scout goes in, he just uses E.
A little bit dangerous here. That's the Vault Breaker charge that the flash doesn't hit. Scout will flash afterwards.
You gotta be cringing.
They're coming
a little
for this.
bit of Shun after that. That could have been such a big moment. It is only flash for flash. You get a kill there. You manage to force Scout out of lane before he can push this in as well. Those small advantages can mean so much. Tarzan battle warding, spotting out where Shun is, so very important. LNG wanting this early
literally
advantage,
back again, though. Oh, doesn't connect that Vault Breaker again. Shun just trying to get the right distance down early on. But how perfect is this, Nymeara? Literally. 2v2 mid lane, that's all we need to look at.
Yeah. Literally, we were preparing for this series. We sat down and said, what do you want to talk about in this series, Mazel? And Mazel goes, what do you want to talk about in this series, Nymeara? And we both go, yeah, mid-jungle's pretty good. And it has been such a treat all the way over these 3 games. In early game, in mid-game, and through into the late game as well. They've really left nothing left to be desired. It's been all left on the table, all on the Rift. And BLG, giving as good as they take. After game 1, could have written them off, but Scout in this 3rd game, again, making things contentious, making things a little harder for BLG, soaking up a lot of pressure, but it has been back and forth all day.
And it's just so crazy to me. I mean, I've had so much fun with all the changes we've had in the LPL, a lot of the team changes, long-standing members switching sides, things like that. But the Scout for LNG versus BLG's Yagao is one that still is like very hard for me to get used to, but I love that we get these kinds of matchups now, and especially where both of them had those big performances.
Tarzan topside, melee synergy, going in, but Jin's countered it.
I don't know if they can get it, though. Ben trying to go back in for his own kill. The riposte gets stopped. That Arctic Assault used back in aggression against Tarzan.
Yeah, credit to Ben, really playing the passive game well, those vitals. Of course, there's a little bit of luck involved in it, but Ben getting the most of it. Tarzan still having to stick around. Zika not really wanting to give up this wave, if at all possible. Hasn't got that TP, can't just TP back under turret. Ben and Jin, not sure they can do that much, but Counter-Strike comes back up to at least buy some safe time for Zika in the tower.
We get an engaged bot side though. LP's flashing forward to kill Elk. He doesn't get the Ultra Shock laser off, and now Elk will be able to put down a little bit more back. You got the Prey Seeker there as well. Try to get those stacks up for the Void. Oh no, stop playing. Zika, Shun! He takes the extra shot. Luckily, Pin gets first blood, but it was V close.
It was close. Tower still taking those minions. Bot lane. This is one of the things I love about bot lane 2v2s like this too. See everyone top side, find yourself a fight here.
Don't find anything, just that give and take that On has on the Rakan. And that engage that Hung is always looking for.
He is. I will say, normally when you see an even laning phase with a Zeri in it, you normally think that the Zeri kind of comes out on top. Kaisa is in a great scaling point nowadays. As you said, 2 to 3 items. Because of the ADC itemizations, you can go towards Blade the Ruin King 3rd, Nash's 2 3rd, Navori Quick Blades only activating on 2 kind of crit items. Very, very strong. Gonna go back to this replay top side though and just very close of BLG from shutting down Zika. Been luckily getting that kill before tower aggro has left Shum. Doesn't end up going down to that tower as well, but at least Zika getting something back on the tower.
So now we're looking at level 6s here for Yagao and Scout. Obviously a lot of setup for both sides here, but a lot of damage potential there for Yagao. And we're not getting that kind of move out of mid lane this time around. We are getting that focus on mid lane and these solo lanes, especially for Tarzan and LNG.
Tarzan walking back up into the enemy jungle, away from the solo lanes. Has the luxury of pushing mid lane for now, spotted out with that vision plan. And Tarzan, credit to him, he's doing the best he can in terms of trying to track enemy jungle from getting up in their face. Tarzan has been one of the real standout junglers in the LPL Spring 2023 so far. Helps, of course, by the fact that he has one of the best mid laners in the same split as well in Scout. Zika taking trades in this top side.
That's a Grandmaster's might pop there as well. So Zika feel a little confident mid lane. An Emperor's Divide goes a little bit wide. We see the flash used by Yagao though.
Yeah, these engaged supports, roaming supports, making things a little bit dicey here, right? That would have been Emperor's Divide straight into Hung's waiting Zenith Blade. Yagao misses the stun here. On now trying to make his way into plays as well. I love watching these roaming supports kind of go tit for tat in terms of their roaming macro. As much as it got a little bit boring watching, Thresh Nautilus for 2 years straight with Leona, or like Thresh Leona for like 2 years straight.
Bring it back.
I do miss having this extra like level of map play, like knowing that you can get out of lane and make a play happen somewhere, but only on specific timings. It's a skill set which I really value in a lot of these supports. And
as an ADC player, I'm the island and bot lane. I'm not about it, but sometimes it's worth it. And we have literally just watched Hung walk back and forth between bot lane for the last like 2 minutes.
But what that's meant is that it's allowed Scout to force Yagao's flash out, which means that Yagao doesn't have the safety to push out this wave. Even though no kill has happened, flash is gone, wave is now in the advantage of LNG, Scout gets to control this mid lane, and this mid lane has been so very important. Both mid laners got their player of the match, their MVPs for their victories. Scout in game 1, Yagao in game 2. With the matchup going towards Scout currently, forcing Yagao into awkward positions, it's a good litmus test at least, good omen for LNG heading into this decider.
We are seeing that move around this Rift Herald #1. There is a dragon on the other side if there wants to be a trade for either side. But Shun moves in, starts up the Rift Herald, and maybe even calling LNG's bluff.
Well, wave under turret and topside means Zika can't move to the play immediately. Maybe they can delay it, look for a play just after this. Emperor's Divide just coming up off a cooldown. Both these teams have a lot of ultimates to fight.
Yeah, they might be able to get the pushback though. Yagao gets a little bit more damage. Shun able to get a kill back. Now you got Scout flashing out, having to use those shifting sands to get away from it, and good capitalization for BLG.
They kill Hung before he can use the Solar Flare. We're talking about it right just before that. Lots of great ultimates to fight around Herald on both sides of the Rift. Lots of level 6 powers points. You can deny one of them, burst them out very, very quickly. Things get a bit spooky. Bot lane is left alone to their own regards. So neither of them going to be getting plates from this. I'm actually not sure Herald was
was not level 6 yet either. Just gets the double knock up into the CC.
But here's the problem point. Everyone else was, which means that you've got a really difficult decision. Scout loses his flash as well, uses his ult but to no avail. Yagao though, he doesn't have flash from earlier and he's dead.
In the picture-in-picture, Hung got really mad that he went down without using his ulti, and I think Yagao, he does end up going down. It goes to Scout, but Hung came right back with a vengeance.
Oh, close run stuff. Resets come through. BLG couldn't stick around for the Herald afterwards, maybe afraid that they'd used too much. HP bars were too low, but what that means is that with LP joining the play, adding the extendo beam into the damage calculation, LNG walk away with a kill. They walk away with the Herald. And Elk also didn't get to push into this bot side. They can actually, all things said and done, despite losing the initial fight, they get away with a pretty clean Herald take. They don't lose plates, they don't lose waves to tower. They're feeling okay about that.
Yeah, this is the play that we were talking about. He literally just came in,
oh, that ult that they couldn't use around
flared.
that Herald. Well, there it is.
Needed to get the utilization. Say, look, I'm helping. We did see the trade on the other side, though. BLG securing their first dragon of the game here, just about 11 minutes in. Will be contested there, and something to write at least to the later part of the game for BLG.
Something to keep an eye on as well. Something that we used to see from Kaisa's previously was stopping off for a serrated Dirk to get your Q upgrade before you complete your first item. Because Q upgrade for Kaisa gives you a lot more damage. Something to kind of be aware of. I'm actually wondering what Elk's build is going to be in regards to that, because you don't really want to go collect a second anymore. Dirk is still a good laning item. You might have to stop off for the Dirk before you head into like your 2-item power spike though. Just interested to see what happens with that. Haven't seen too much of the Kaisa on this patch so far. Might help BLG hit their point of power quicker. Actually, just go straight for the Kraken Slayer.
Yep, just go straight for the Kraken Slayer. Why not? And that's a little bit of that late game damage you're looking for, with the stacking damage into a little bit healthier targets like Zika, like Tarzan, even like Hung later on. But we do see and need to see a little bit of utilization, rather. Words are hard. On this big item spike, right? You have the Black Cleaver now completed for Shun, and you've got the Kraken Slayer there. You've got the Divine Sunder for Ben.
Great thing about last game in this series, that words were kind of secondary to just kind of screaming at all the crazy engages. And you can kind of
That's
feel
where
that
my bread and butter is, all right? Just scream at things.
Worked out pretty well for you in that last game, mate. And I feel like you might have to start warming up those vocal cords again, because lots of engage in this game again. Lots of teamfight potential, lots of ability to kind of pick people off around the sides. Things get very, very crazy now. All his ultimates on or are on board. On, Shun, Tarzan, Hung, all heading towards this top side. They've been unlocked from their lanes. Roaming support meta is well and truly back in this game 3. What can they do this? Oni walking up a bit further.
Han's playing pretty aggressively here. Has Shun and Yagao right behind him, though, with maybe even Ben coming down here. Hung tries to go for the engage, doesn't hit it. Everything's going wide. They're trying to find as much as they can in this wombo combo. When you miss every single piece of CC, I think that's time to walk away, LNG.
Yeah, I feel like that was a fight for the sake of fighting. I think BLG were just looking to tie up members on the top side of the map, because Elk is just pushing towards the spot side. Forces a teleport out at the end of it. That's absolutely fine from the side of BLG. They walk away having blown a couple of ultimates. Elk in the mid lane pushes into that tower, but Yagao's there to pick it up. So BLG, they're kind of winning in terms of the macro sense. They're getting a couple more minions to their name, denying a teleport. Have this towards the top side. And once again, round 2. Let's see if anything comes of this fight.
See if anything happens here. You have LP hovering up this top side. We do see that Rift Herald trying to make a charge in, but Yagao should be able to stop that one. And it's still 3v3 hovering here on the top side.
Close. There we go. Just about guessed that. I was wondering if he'd actually get enough damage before the charge started off. So BLG deny the Herald, get a teleport for their troubles on the bot side. Been more than happy going 1v2 up here. Elk's getting free farm.
God, it's just literally 3v3s walking around the map, man. Like, this is insane.
No, but I love this next level. You're trying to just deny as much as possible. Another big thing about this too, this reminds me of Season 8, for those of you who remember the Kaisa Xayah meta way back when RNG won that MSI as well with Uzi. Both these AD carries are getting solo XP. Level 10 for the AD carries is the same as the mid laners, and watch them try and come to this fight now.
That's a big Emperor's Divide back, though, from Scout to separate. Yagao's coming out on the other side, but Shifting Sands gets him out of there, and again, you just get blows given back and forth, but nobody goes down.
So obviously AD carries couldn't make it to that fight on the bot lane. Didn't quite look at them enough on that one. But still, both these AD carries, same level as solo laners. That is going to be really important to track, particularly when you get to big levels on both of these carries. It affects very much the way that you play. Kaisa, when you get to level 13, huge attack speed started from her E. Same with Zeri as well in terms of her E's extended damage and those kind of shots.
Oh my god.
Man.
Takes one shot from the tower
for
there.
That second cooldown.
A little bit close. Both sides feeling a little bit of that brunt, but Lightning Crash utilized from LP.
Yeah, Elk, I think, was just waiting for the second cooldown of that Q. Has the Q upgrade with 2 extra long swords on top of that. Huge single target damage, but Elk blows the lightning crash. You are not safe from this Kaisa. Nor do you have a Lulu to save you this time. Elk, being left alone to their own devices, this is why I was saying earlier, in an even laning phase, normally you value a Zeri more than most AD carries. Kaisa, I think, is an exception to that, particularly with the new patch. Heading towards something like a Navori and then into third item spikes as well, Elk is going to hit like a truck and also be able to join the pick attempts with these roaming supports, with these 3v3s. Zeri can do similar with like hopping over the wall, but Kaisa is the OG at that when it comes to AD carries.
Literally, I think that will be the difference maker in these late game team fights. We saw again, I think you were talking about like that latent damage still being on the table and kind of doing those math breakpoints, it feels like, during the game, during the fights itself. And I think that's going to be even more important. You're going to have to always account for Elk with the killer instinct.
Yeah. So LNG, we asked them to get an early lead. They have not achieved that. They need to find themselves some way onto the board, get themselves something to play around, an area of real advantage for them. Haven't quite easily found that so far.
I love how confident On has been on this Rakan here. It will just be that second dragon going over to BLG, but he has been maybe even bluffing a lot of the time with a lot of these engages, but the pressure has been felt by LNG.
So, Dragon's traded for Herald. It's going to be that Chemtech Rift. It's not the most valuable soul, but still, good Dragons to pick up. Actually, the Rift very important. On caught out here, but he's going to be just about safe.
Cut the grain entrance
out
of there.
Retreat from this.
Elk is here. We got TP coming down. They need to get in on that time. He can't get caught out like that. And BLG flashing over the walls here. Scout goes for it, gets the pushback on a Shun, and the counter-strike comes through. Zika gets the kill. And BLG pushed back on by LNG.
1 for 2. Herald, can't remember. Oh, it just got summoned. I was like, hang on, what the heck happened to the Herald? It's dead. It's just been summoned in the mid lane. Scout picks it up and decides, hang on, wait, that's too much responsibility for me to bag. Get that out of my infantry. Puts it in towards this mid lane, and it will be a mid lane turret. That's important. That allows LNG to get vision deeper into the enemy jungle. They're really high roller for this play. They get the fight, they get the mid lane turret out of that Herald, and that's going to be very important for late game. Once you get that mid lane out of turret down, very easy to kind of get yourself the vision you need. Bin flashed in front of the
really good flash from Bin, and that's a solo kill to the top laner of Bilibili.
Gets himself some Shuriman fried chicken, takes down Scout in that top side. Just doesn't expect him to be hanging about in that brush. BLG gets something back, 2 kills onto Bin's Fiora, and how good is he at that champion? BLG, they have plenty of power spikes to play around themselves. LNG, with a brief moment of power after that Herald fight, as we said, they really got a lot out of that, but they have to capitalize. You have that outer turret down in that mid lane. You have to push forward into the enemy jungle, get some of that vision down, which you currently don't control. That might stop BLG being able to play around their roaming support and this Kaisa flying in.
On in a little bit of trouble here. Gets the engage onto Hung. Hung getting low, but he goes golden. Zika has now found Yagao. He's trying to get in range for the counter-strike. Shun has gotten 1 kill, but lightning crash from LP. And they're finding a little bit of shots. Shun dragged back again by Scout.
LNG moving in force, getting all 5 people to the play. LP still going, has the ult running. Doesn't find anything
get
just
a little
there.
bit of damage back.
A little bit of damage. But BLG, starting to buy into a couple of these fights, maybe a little too soon. Not gonna lie. Ben has a point of power, but you're waiting. You're waiting for a couple more items to make these plays. Now Ben, very happy to make isolated plays. Blocks out on the E. Not able to shift that out of that one for free. Uses the flash for it, but more than happy to take that 350 gold into pocket. But by the time this play happens, Scout goes to TP back. You haven't made this play in the correct kind of time zone, and because of the way the terrain is kind of working here, Elk doesn't want to fly into the middle of this fight. Maybe if you can stack up lethal tempo at the side, you feel more happy about it, but as you can see even in the fight before that, Scout threatening Elk on the side of things. And Elk actually building up towards a Phantom Dancer. Not going towards the Navori Quick Blades, which we're seeing a little bit more and more, especially with the ADC itemization changes. It's one of the preferred builds. Going to be more attack speed. Does build up towards something like the E upgrade. Right now, second item, maybe valuing the E upgrade a little more, actually, saying, actually, the momentary invisibility, very important to stop some of this point and click coming through, but still for me, it's It's still a good power spike, but Navori is so important on this patch.
But I do want to bring attention. We have another Dragon coming up in about 1 minute and 20 seconds, and BLG want to continue stacking that up. This would be sole point for them as well. Those second item spikes going to be huge. Obviously trying to look at who's going to complete those last-ditch efforts if we are going to get a contest over that one. But I would expect with LNG's big presence down here, they'll try to move some vision game out and get some control.
It is an awful lot about control. We've laughed and we've bemoaned a little bit about the constant 3v3s around the map. Supports untethered from their AD carries. A lot of that comes around vision play as well, because you're looking for these momentary snap engages, people out of position. That's why we've seen, you know, Rakan, Sejani, Leona going into melee distance, but not casting anything, because they know as soon as they commit, you cannot afford to blink.
Yeah.
You don't know where everyone is at once. Vision control comes first. Dragon coming up in 40 seconds. Zika doesn't have the teleport for it just yet. Might be up just in time for that attempt, but BLG will have the vision control around that objective should LNG choose to contest on it.
And I guess now we really do start bringing into consideration Ben and Zika and what this side lane kind of means for these big fights leading into it, right? And how much strength we saw from Fiora so far in the LPL, especially even just today. I'm very interested at how LNG want to specifically approach this.
I'm trying to catch up on, but again, so hard to get. Scout misses!
Oh, so close.
So close, but that's a flash gone, that's an ult gone. LNG, that Emperor's Divide has kept Elk from doing damage in the last few fights. Elk, he should be looking at an open season here in the next fight.
We're looking now at this Dragon fight. BLG here, front and center, to claim a sole point for themselves. As LNG are moving in with all 5, they can find an engage, they can maybe find a fight, as all tools are available except for that Shurima shuffle.
LNG not looking for the engage.
They get the knockback on. They get the Dragon and they catch out Hung. They're going forward now as well. Cease and desist used out of the backline. LP. He pops that lightning crash. Ultra shock laser across 3 members. And it's a front to back now.
Zika
Shun tries to go in. They're back and forth and back and forth. But LP, the lightning is starting to trickle in. And the LNG thunder starting to brew.
LNG, they call off the chase from Zika and the back end of that because the Baron is alive. Get control of that side of the map. Jungler's dead. Mid laner dead for BLG. BLG, they overstay their welcome and they're going to get punished so heavily after managing that dragon fight so well.
At the second item completion now for Scout. He just got the Zanyas. They are on to the Baron, pushing the pace of the game against BLG. Can they make it in? Can they make a miracle happen here? Braceseeker just too early and Ben can't contest.
Oh, that is such a heartbreaking moment from BLG. You thought they were in a great position. Dragon down, pick down the sun.
3-man ultra shock.
Overchase. They just overchase
they
so
get
far.
So much.
They get, you know, they get the support down. Soul Flare's not available in this fight, but they don't shut down LP, despite not having an enchanter. They overchase into a choke point. Azir soldiers are there. LP is firing through. LP gets to hop over walls, and to me, again, it feels like Elk, despite having multiple items on this Kaisa, not really able to do the damage that his team needs of him at this point. BLG losing the damage calculation. Now they have to stare down a gold lead from the LNG. They stare down a Baron power play building against them. And LNG, they've somehow, some way, fought themselves into a good position.
And what's sad about that is that LP and Elk were at the same damage numbers, but it matters where that damage went down and who it went into. And I think LP is just able to pick it apart a little bit more so. And love this opt-in to this style for LNG for this last game. And they're finding a lot of advantages with it, even though it's only that 2,000 gold lead. Now, it was that sole point for BLG, and they'll be looking for a little bit more of that stacking objective advantage.
Shun charging up that Q. Don't think he's been able to catch LP. Stood next to the wall, could have just spark surged right the way across it. BLG pinned into their towers, and we mentioned the control being very important early on, particularly when you've got engaged supports, you've got TPs, you've got the ability for AD carries to fly over walls. LNG now have full control. They were actually fighting very well, considering they didn't have control just before this. It becomes that harder now for BLG to really find the picks that they want to, but they see a reset coming through. Shun pushing forward, understanding that there would be a numbers advantage if they did go for fight after that point. BLG buy themselves a brief reprieve as LNG choose to reset.
And I guess the big catch-up potentials are still there for BLG. I think they will be in a state where late game damage is going to be just fine if they can find a way to pick apart the fights. Obviously using Bin in the side lane as well when he's getting to like his second, his third item. But it's been about shoring up these team fights. And yes, they have a lot of CC. They have a lot of spacing tools available. Yagao has been super clutch in that, but it hasn't been enough.
Not been enough yet. See if that can change in future moments. Yagao, I actually haven't checked his character portrait for a while. He's going to be getting closer towards that. Well, he probably has the ult upgrade already. Once you get towards that final kind of passive upgrade, you get the extra, effectively half a death cap onto Syndra, because Syndra's kind of like halfway between a center and a victor nowadays. You start stacking up, getting evolutions towards your abilities, rather than it being on levels of your abilities. It's on kind of the amount of skill shots that you hit on people. But what that means is that Syndra scales incredibly well as a single target burst champion later on into the game. We haven't really seen Yagao be the difference maker in these fights. He's had a 0 and 3. Very, very different from his second game. But one ultimate could be enough to make things a little bit spooky for LNG.
Yeah, I mean, both ADCs really come into their own in this last game, it feels like. We had so much to say about Scout, about Yagao. We had said at the beginning that, you know, bot lane does have the potential to have some say in this one, and we're getting that full opt-in in this final game with the Zeri versus Kaisa.
Yeah, both AD carries a little bit of assassin playstyle too, them being able to dive into the backline, take matters into their own hands.
Really quick, it is third item completed for Elk here, coming into this fight that is a soul fight for BLG.
That is okay. So item built up for Elk. Lord Dominates regards. Been buffed in the last couple of patches as well in terms of the amount of extra damage you do to people with more health than you. Very important if you're starting to wail on Tarzan or Zika. It's about front to back from Elk in this kind of play. Has the ultimate at rank 2, can fly into this.
Nice re-engage though. Yagao gets a decent amount of damage back for Shun. He has to flash out. Bin, he's a little bit low. Killer instinct from Elk. He gets the backline. He's got to get help. He needs to get the rest of his team, but there's nobody left to help him. And LP's flashing over the wall with his flashy plays, but it's not enough for BLG to get anything back. You still have so many tools available for LNG.
Yeah, Elk just flies straight into like the Kraken's mouth. He gets one kill with his Q going through the Zika counter-strike, but it's not enough. He doesn't have a stopwatch at that point. He didn't have a flash. Scout cleans up house with the Emperor's Divide after that point. And BLG, it feels like they really hand that fight over. It wasn't a front to back, it was fractured. Even though they get the initial pick off of Yagao, we understand that, you know, Syndra, really good single target burst. That's great and all, but you don't have your AD carry here. You are opting into the 4v5. Elk only turns up later, and that one kill, I hate to say it, that's just not worth it. That's not worth it for killing off 100 HP Jax. You need to be doing an awful lot of DPS after that point. As soon as that Kaiser's off the board, LP completely uncontested in the damage check.
And LP was just so free hitting that entire time. Didn't even have to burn that flash to the wall. That was my mistake. It's just so quick that I thought it was with all the lightning around him. But it really is that heads-up play from LP.
Yeah, so good luck next fight. He's got 3 items himself now. You had that 1 item breakpoint. You had that 3 items. Of course, a little bit cheaper than the Infinity Edge, but still, BLG feels like they really fumbled that chance, which has been such a shame for them. They've had a great series against LNG, against a 6-1 tied first place team. BLG trying to push beyond just the mid-table, trying to push beyond the half and half series score, but it's looking a little bit difficult now. Behind in gold, even though they're on that soul point, lots of items built up for LNG, and this Zeri, this Azir, this Jax, all very much online.
And it doesn't seem like BLG are opting into that big side lane pressure. It does seem like Bin is going more for the in-fight, I guess, advantages to some extent, right? It looks like he's going to go with that that Maw for the 3rd item there for himself. So I'm really interested at how BLG are attempting to approach these games, even though they feel like they're losing these fights pretty handily.
Feels like these fights could be in their hands, though. They're not that far off of actually being just a... It's just like, it's close to being a clean first pick and then out. They just overchased that first time, and the second time they couldn't quite commit to, they couldn't quite finish off that first kill that they committed to. Now LNG control almost all the vision on the side of the map that they want to do so. BLG starting to group up around this Baron. They do burn it incredibly quickly with the items they have up. The Azir is starting to scale up, as we've been saying. The Zeri, 3 items. Stopwatch in there as well. Pay attention to that one.
It's a redemption second item for Tarzan, by the way.
That is actually a really good call-out, because these fights are lasting a long time. If you do survive with the Zhonya's for just a couple more seconds, that redemption comes down. A lot of extra HP that you now suddenly got to burn through from BLG. I think it's very intelligent for Tarzan. Always been a player which has thought quite carefully about his itemization. I remember one of his times back on the Griffin roster, played Spellbook Sejani way out of meta and teleported into ganks. Didn't work out in that game, but he's always had that kind of mindset. In this game, could be a difference maker, a breaker of the scales in this one. Rakan been trying to just push in the mid lane, get themselves some way to push into the other side of the map.
Well, again, LNG just moving forward onto BLG's base. They could always turn back onto the Baron, but they're looking for picks first. See if they can find any as a Praise Seeker does go through. We'll see if LNG just want to kind of bait this out as Zika's pushing in mid lane.
Waiting maybe for the next scout of the week. Looking if Yagao can find a stun somewhere.
Oh.
It's not enough. So dangerous diving into the other teams at this point. Diving into a Syndra, not exactly healthy. Diving into an Azir, especially with this amount of items, even less healthy at that point.
They're just burning
LG,
it. They do it so fast.
Clear out, they do it so fast, they've cleared out vision. BLG, though, have a free approach there. How quickly can they get that?
This is going to have to be a miracle steal or a turnaround from LNG. Nice knockback on the Hung, but that might not be the member you need. The big lightning crash back, and they've already lost on. This is an easy pickup of the Baron for LNG, and a steal, only thing in the eyes of BLG.
Zika's got counter strike. Oh, you've just gone straight into the Jax,
going
folks.
over. Wombo combo gets flashed out of, though, and BLG having the hands to try to stop LNG in their tracks.
They're going to go straight back towards the Baron, though. This is so reminiscent of Game 1. To the Baron, turn. To the Baron, turn. Can they finally finish? Can they finally get the clean fight?
Ben wants to come over. Scout of the week is there. Yagao trying to get some damage down. Shunt out of the pit there. It is now the fight afterwards. They've got Ben on the back, but Elk is left out. He flashes. He's over the wall with the kill instinct. They actually might be able to turn this if Elk can kite down, but it's too little. Ben, he got the grand challenge off. He's going back in. He goes down to Scout, and Elk doesn't end up joining the fight. He's going to hold him. Wait, though he gets the standard there. He can break some ankles here. Again, he find the 2v1. He gets poked down there. The Leandry's starting to do some work. He's trying to heal a little bit more. Elk, you are the last saving grace. He cannot do it. He gets taken out. The spear to the heart from Scout.
And who else standing at the end but LNG's mid-jungle? One of the very best in the league. Scout finding another pick.
Beautiful stuff, and they lay down for an alley-oop. And as you said, Scout and Tarzan, they truly are heads above the rest of this league.
And Elk, again, trying to find his way to do some damage, but he's on his own in the front line, in the very back line. Uses his stopwatch for as most as time as he can.
This was huge.
But this was huge, yeah, and that stopwatch buys time. It's what it does. But when you are buying time, you're not doing damage. And you're not able to get onto Scout. You're not able to close down all of the damage threats. Ben does an awful good job of trying to clean up something somewhere, but the damage in this late game scenario, so high, so hard for any of these characters to really get a clean up.
About 5,000 gold in the lead. Now 2 dragons back to back for LNG. They're getting item spikes as well. 4th item completed, Rabadons for Scout. You've got the 3rd item completed for Tarzan in that Sunfire. And GA completed down there for LP. So they're coming back on the map with a lot to bargain with. And Elk's just trying to scrape up as much gold as he can to try to set up for a next fight.
Yeah, got the core fields in inventory. I'm not entirely sure what's going to head towards. Maybe it is the late Navori or something like that. Does build into it, but we'll have to see what Elk does choose to bring to the table. That GA onto LP, that is going to be crucial, because in some games, you lose your life and you just die again. In this game, when you're actually standing over Azir soldiers, which are protecting you, you've got a redemption coming through as well, Radiant Virtue coming through, lots of ways to kind of protect the body of LP if they do go down, which means that BLG, you often would like to be playing around the first pick. If Syndra gets an opportunistic play, if Elk manages to get an opportunistic ultimate into the backline, it gets that much harder. LNG taking no chances, wanting to stay at the top of the table.
Wanting to improve to 7-1 here and get ready for their tough tests that lie ahead of them. They have now taken 2 2-0s back-to-back and now looking for a 2-1 over BLG. 3 wins in a row sets you up very nicely for the end of the season here for LNG as we are in the 6th week. But LNG's siege continuing with the side lane push from Yagao. They get a little bit back for themselves.
Here's something. Wave lost its turret down there. Wave crashing into this mid lane, though. BLG not able to find the engage, but able to at least protect the rest of their inhibitors. So, we're back out onto the map. Game's not over yet. And even with a big gold lead, when you're 35 minutes into the game, it doesn't really mean as much. The damage is already there in a lot of places, right? It's more about how your champions interact with each other, unless you're insanely far ahead or behind.
So you were
You're
correct.
Absolutely right. There we go. There we go.
Look
it is
at that.
there. Now, the thing is, definitely prefer this as a second item. Works on 13.3. Didn't used to before. Used to have to get it as third item to get 60% crit before it does go towards it. But now, Elk, extra ability damage, because of course Navori gives you that. Extra ability to get your extra cooldown, more E's, more Q's, more W's if you're auto-attacking people. Maybe some extra ability for Ulk to clean up those fights. But trying to clean up fights through this amount of danger in the front line. Jack spinning that counter-strike up. The soldiers with a death cap empowering them. Already talked about LP's itemization as well. Elk has his work cut out for him, and it kind of has to be on Elk as well. It's about these teamfight engages. Bin has tried his best, but he doesn't have the ability to reach the backline all that easily. LNG walking up, shuffling these minions into tower. How much can they realistically do?
Oh my god, Yagao having a flash there on might just get caught out. Is the tower that is the focus for LNG though, and they'll burn down this second tier.
That was a bit of a freebie. Nothing left on the map. I think BLG just understand that they are waiting for the side lane to happen at this point. 4 kills on Bin's Fiora, heading up towards 4 items himself. Actually quite hard for Zika in the match at this point. When you have a Zhonya's, it's great for the team fights. It doesn't work as well when you're into 1v1 matchups, which actually means that Scout's going to be the one to sweep up the farm just here. It looks like he's going towards a Gnash's Tooth last to get himself some extra attack speed. That DPS will be absolutely redonkulous when it gets to that
that's the GA for Bin.
Well, Bin, at least, the thing about Bin now is that in a 1v1, Bin is probably going to be uncontested for a little while. I just don't think that BLG are going to be able to utilize that because they're not able to counter the push from LNG. This is just BLG saying, hey, Bin, you go carry our flag and put our standard on some lonely island over on the other side of the map. We'll try and hold the fort down here. You just try and get the pressure off of us. Southblade lands. Not going to lead to much right now, though.
No matter what, though, I am absolutely looking at Elk and LP's positioning here. They are the big late game damage right now. You could say what you will about Scout and Yagao. They will obviously have a lot to say, but as soon as LP goes down, the fight changes. And we are getting a fight brewing here as LNG trying to take down BLG with one last big team fight.
What kind of witch's brew is this one, though? What magic can we cook up? This could be the fight which determines the series. Sees LNG setting themselves again, being the pace setters at the top of the table.
Just gonna force the Baron fight again.
Well, that's what they do well. Force them to the Baron, force them to respond, try and find something off of it.
That's a flash out though. Shun should be able to make it out with the Vault Breaker. The Scout of the Week comes back. Elk going forward a little bit, try to get some poke down. Scout was right around the corner though.
BLG, so dangerous them to step forward into LNG. They don't really get free chunks. They're outranged by Azir. Azir's poke is seriously threatening at this point.
Elk's do a decent amount to Tarzan though. If he overextends just a little bit, could be detrimental as Zika will TP into the top side of the fight.
Shroom's legacy down in that mid lane.
Oh, I don't think they saw there. Okay.
Backstop. Zika is not there currently. Well, not seen currently. Has flash. Don't think he's even been seen right now. What that means is actually maybe Zika can just go solo at this objective. BLG, they really don't have an answer to this. They were set on Soul Point. They are not going to see it at all. In this state, honestly, this is the worst possible scenario regarding the Dragons for BLG. It's the worst soul in the game. So no one really cares if you take that. They would have actually liked for LNG to take the Dragons at this point. Because if they had taken the Soul, at least you can flip around Elder. Maybe you could get a Miracle Steal on Elder and then start finishing off some of these kills, which they've really struggled to after this point.
Ooh,
they don't get that point. They're now looking at LNG, who's got lots of extra tenacity, lots of extra kind of stats from the Chemtech Dragon, just the base ones, without having to worry about the lower value Soul. BLG, they need to wait for LNG to really mess up around an objective, and they don't care about the Dragons right now, so that's half of those objectives gone.
We just saw the Redemption also used by Tarzan for a little bit of vision around the Baron just in case BLG were trying to burn it. Now we also have Mortal Reminder completed for LP. He is full build on the Zeri, and we know how terrifying that can be. On the other side, it has been responded to, as we do have full build for Elk as well.
No ultimate pop.
This is some trouble. This is TPs. This is a desperate fight for BLG. They're trying to get Shunin on out of there. Bin, he has the grand challenge down. Elk is on the side. You got to watch Elk. Bin gets his GA pop now. Elk getting burned down. They're going to leave Bin out, and he can't have any help from his team. And now it's a 4v5 in favor of LNG.
LNG, they pull the trigger to get themselves a teleport.
They just don't have the damage.
They don't. Elk, not able to shred through these tanks. He's got a Lord Dominus regards, but it's just not enough. LP is running the damage show alongside Scout. Now, BLG, they have to fight from a numbers disadvantage.
They're going to go in double counter strike from Zika and LNG. They pounce on BLG. Can they find Elk, though? He's able to count a little bit more. He is the damage focus as the redemption comes through from BLG, and they actually put up a little contest. Literally, this is Elk trying to make it happen. Yagao gets engaged. Elk is on the back line. Yagao is down, and Elk is the only one left. He gets pushed down, and his GA will not save him today. You better be calling some kind of angel, because BLG will go down yet again.
The angels aren't answering. Elk's at heaven's door. He's not there to defend the Nexus. And LNG, it was a rocky early game in this one, but they have seen themselves through the tough tides of this series. Losing game 2, BLG asking questions, but they answer resoundingly with their mid-game in game 3 and see themselves 7-1.
Bin trying to make something happen here with On, but it's a last-ditch effort for a paltry prize. As an 8-1-9 Scout, a 6-1-11 LP, and a 4-0-14 Tarzan cement their lead in the LPL and cement their devastation of BLG. Shun's just trying to make something happen here. On is by time proxying the wave, but it's all for naught.
Well, I mean, On has done a bit of a Marin, for those of you who remember. His famous play way back in the day, held the minions up. Not managed to quite kill the wave, but despite all of our, like, big lines, big words, BLG do stay alive. They have managed to keep them away from the Nexus, and BLG will definitely take that over losing the series then and there. They're still in it, despite being much further behind again. Full builds being hit by so many people across the board on LNG. BLG, one last crack at it, but it's still not any easier than before.
Yeah, I mean, the Baron should just go down here for LNG. Don't think there's any real contest to come out from BLG. Shun is not even on the map anymore, and with that Baron, even with some of the scaling factors coming into fruition here for BLG, some of the items for Yagao specifically, it's not nearly going to be enough, it feels like, from the oppression that LNG are putting out.
So, BLG, what's your play now? Can't just wait and let LNG finish the game in front of you. They have Baron, you have inhibitors down, you have a Nexus turret down, and there is a full build Azir alongside the full build Zeri. Very much monarchs of the late game, those two champions staring down at you. At least there's full build onto Elk, but we've seen already Elk's really, really struggling to finish off these fights. Too much of a frontline difference between the two teams. BLG are going to head towards this dragon. We're going to get one more fight. It's around this dragon, but then riposts.
Oh, a couple engage tools used from LNG. Gotta be a little careful. Shun got actually a ton of his health bar chunked out just from scouting a couple shots. As heal will be utilized there to some extent, trying to get something back here with a little bit of that healing that LNG provide.
LNG inside track, pushing towards that mid lane, forcing the back doors. Zika leap strikes forward.
Not able to find the counter strike there as LNG actually looking on the back. Don't find Shun, who got a quick back off there. The siege continuing with dragon spotting in 10 seconds.
So LNG force BLG away from the dragon. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like they could just let BLG fight them and just beat them. I think they win in all these fights right now by playing this kind of macro runabout, denying BLG the fight. I just wonder if they should be trying to play this out instead.
I love the zeros across the board.
This is actually pretty big now, because you have 3 champions to the side of LNG, which are likely going to be sat around half HP or less at the back end or mid parts of the fight. Having the extra resist, the extra damage, kind of important here. This is one of the games where you go super late game. Being under 50% HP and getting that Chemtech Soul where you do 10% more damage and receive 10% less has value at this point. It's just more stats that BLG have to worry about. It's the last this Baron buff comes into pushing.
Desperation here. BLG want to find a flank, but they've already lost Yagao as the hammer comes down for LNG. They might lose one back. There's a little bit of pushback, but BLG, they push once, and LNG kicks straight through their face. There's a double kill for LP, and this is a game win, a series win for LNG. They over to 7.
That was the last chapter to be written. Took him a couple of attempts at the Nexus. An epilogue, if you will, but it is still the same ending we expected after that mid-game. 3-game series going to the side of LNG, 2-1. Last Nexus falling in their favor. But BLG, they don't leave feeling bad about this series, I don't think. They will feel regretful probably for losing it, of course. Now ending at 4-4. The 50-50 team right split down the middle. They gave good games to LNG, who we have had a lot of praise for before, particularly this mid-jungle. In that game too, were outshone, actually, by BLG. They did a really good job of holding them to account, team fighting incredibly well. Wasn't to be today, wasn't to be, ended up losing over in the course of the entire series, but